writing task is divided into two. Task 1, if you are doing the general version, you'll be doing letter writing. But if you are doing the academic version, you will be doing interpretation of diagram. So that is task 1. Now, whether you are doing letter writing or interpretation of diagram, you will have 20 minutes to write not less than 150 words as your response. So for the people that are doing general writing or general format, they'll do letter writing. Those doing the academic version, they'll do interpretation of diagram. We're going to look at this in details. Then they have 20 minutes to write not less than 150 words. Obviously, it can be more. Then task 2, it's the same for both the academic and the general. It is essay writing. In this section, you will have 40 minutes to write not less than 250 words. Obviously, it can be more. So the 40 minutes actually covers the time for you to read the question, understand the question, plan your writing, do your writing, and review your writing. So everything is inside the 40 minutes. So this simply means you can actually allocate like 30 minutes to your writing, so that the remaining 10 minutes you can use it for reading, understanding your question, planning, and writing and reviewing. Do you understand that? So you look at like 30 minutes to actually do the essay writing. Now, not less than 250 words means it can be more. So don't be much concerned with 250. Once you follow the structure we are going to give you in the essay writing, you are going to meet more than 250 when you are writing. Do you understand? So that is your task 2. Right? Just like I mentioned earlier, task 1 is letter writing. You are going to be writing a letter within 20 minutes. Also, that 20 minutes covers the time for you to read the question, understand the question, plan your writing, and do your writing. But now, the beautiful thing about the writing section is that despite the fact that you have 20 minutes for letter and 40 minutes for essay writing, they see the whole section as one. So in the writing section, you have 60 minutes. What it means is that at the beginning, they are going to give you both the letter and the essay together. So if you finish your letter writing maybe in 17 minutes, you can actually add the 3 minutes to the essay writing. So you don't need to start waiting for it to be 20 minutes before you start the essay writing. So once you finish your letter writing and you are sure you are good, then you go into your essay writing. Do you understand? So the whole session is 1 hour. Sorry, 1 hour, not 1 minute. That's 60 minutes. Now, what is letter writing about? It's simple. It's simply writing a letter. So like we must have learned, there are 3 kinds of letter. So that is the first thing you need to understand. The letter you are asked to write, is it a formal letter? Is it a semi-formal letter? Or is it an informal letter? All right, so that is very, very important. So quickly, we are going to be looking at the skills or useful tips for writing. Some of the tips we are going to talk about right now affect the general writing, then others are specifically for the letter writing. All right. Attention to while you are writing, because the writing aspect of the IELTS exam seeks to assess your ability to write a standard, either standard letter or standard essay. So all the conventional aspects of writing in English language needs to be paid attention to. So the first thing you need to pay attention to is proper capitalization. You know, like for example, there are 3 things in English language that can end a sentence. There are actually 4. I'll talk about the 4th one later. Now, the first thing that can end a sentence is question mark. if the sentence is a question. All right. The second one is exclamation. All right. Then the last one is period, which everybody knows that's the full stop. All right. Now, that means, because obviously you know at the end of every sentence, the next letter must begin with capital letter. So anytime you use a question mark, the next letter has to be capital letter, because the question mark has ended that sentence. If you use exclamation mark, the same thing. If you use period, the same thing. All right. Then anywhere you see proper noun, they also begin with capital letter, whether in the middle of the sentence, at the end, anywhere at the beginning, it must begin with capital letter. Places like, things like Asaba, Nigeria, those are proper noun. Even reserved title like the president is capital P. All right, your royal majesty, those are capitalization. So when you are writing your letter or essay, you need to pay attention to proper capitalization. All right. Proper punctuations. Normally, I think a lot of people are used to the full stop, that is a period, and the comma. You understand? So the full stop actually means that idea is ending there. The comma means a pause. The idea is still continuing, but you're having a pause, then you continue. Then this is colon. Colon and semicolon, you can use them interchangeably. What they do is that they explain, that is what is coming after the colon or semicolon actually explains what comes before it. Okay, so you can use it, but the major difference is this: anytime you use colon, sorry my dear, anytime you use colon, the first letter has to be capital. All of these are very important for your writing. Now, this is an example. The meal was so tasty, semicolon. It was hot and fresh. So it simply means the reason why the meal was tasty was because it was hot and fresh. So anything coming after the colon or semicolon explains what comes before it. Now, since this is semicolon, it's okay to begin with small letter. Since this is semicolon, it's actually okay to begin with what? Small letter. But assuming it is colon, then you have to begin with what? Capital letter. So that is that. Then hyphen. You use hyphen to join two words together that normally shouldn't stay on their own. Maybe something like bioweapon, it becomes like a word. All right. Then quote. This is double quote. You use double quote to repeat what somebody said verbatim. That is the exact word of the person. For example, it was Bill Gates that said. Now, that thing that Bill Gates said, you are going to put it inside quotes, and you ensure you are repeating it exactly as he said it. All right. Now, single quote is to emphasize a word or a phrase while writing. For example, if I put single quote here, I'm trying to tell my audience to pay attention to this. So emphasis is being placed on meal. Okay, so that's how you use your single quote. Your single quote is on your own word or phrase, but the double quote is on what somebody said. Do you get that now? Then lastly, the apostrophe. The apostrophe it denotes belonging. For example, if I say John's pen, it means that the pen belongs to John or Mr. John. Do you get that now? Now, however, for words that are plural or a word that ends with an S, there's a way you use the apostrophe. For example, Moses book. Now you discover that there's not going to be an S after the apostrophe here because this word is ending with an S. So any plural word or a word that ends with an S, you just put the apostrophe in the front and that's fine. So this is Moses' book. So this is John's pen. Do we get that now? So now why it is important for you to learn these punctuations is that you must ensure that you integrate them into your writing. So do not say, when I was writing my essay or letter, there's no place I could use hyphen. You need to think how to use them, because your raters, your examiners are not expecting you to use just only comma and full stop. You'll be using that from your kindergarten. Do you understand? So it's just too normal. So if there's a way you can bring in some of these extra punctuations that are not so regular, it shows that you've mastered the English language to some extent. So creatively, while you are writing, you think about how to bring them in. You get that now? All right. So now, the next thing we are looking at, the next useful tips is proper paragraphing. Proper paragraphing. The idea of paragraphing in writing is the same. All right. A paragraph should contain one information. A paragraph should contain one information. I know why I just emphasized that. Now, that means, for example, if I have 2 points that I want to talk about, all right, maybe I am asked to whether I agree or disagree to something, and then to give maybe 2 reasons why I agree. If I said I agree, for example. Now, 2 reasons. So that means reason 1, reason 2. So under paragraphing, one of the reasons will be on a particular paragraph, the second reason on another paragraph. Do you get that? So that's the idea of paragraphing. A paragraph should contain one holistic or complete information. Do you get that now? Now, after that, there are 2 major ways you can do your paragraph in writing. The first one, they call it indent or indentation. Okay, your indentation is the normal paragraphing that you know, which is giving a gap before you start writing. So I give this kind of a gap, I start writing and continue. So anytime I want to give paragraph, I give that gap. So this is paragraph 1, this is paragraph 2. Then the second one is using spaces. This is a very recent one, and you should use it if you want, but you'll not be penalized anyway for any of them. All right. Now, spaces means you don't need to give indentation. You just write from end to end. And then anytime you want to give a paragraph, you give a space. That space can be a line. Okay. You give a space before you start the second paragraph. So this is paragraph 1. This is paragraph 2. So you have mark when you structure your letter, when you paragraph them properly. Do you understand? That's why I'm taking time to explain all of that. The next useful tip is to ensure you answer the question. All right? Your writing must answer the question that is presented to you, because you are actually marked for your ability to answer the question. We are going to look at the writing criteria later, okay? So, but that's that. Now, after that, particularly for the letter writing, okay, you know, we are actually on task 1, which is letter writing. Now, particularly for the letter writing, the very first useful tips you need to have is to understand the type of letter. Understand the type of letter you are asked to write. Like I mentioned earlier, is it formal letter, semi-formal letter, or informal letter? Now, that is the first thing. So now, how do you identify them? You identify them. I'm just going to. If it is, how you identify a formal letter is if the question asks you to write a letter maybe for a job, all right, or they ask you to write a letter to a company. One of the questions that is very common is usually write a letter to insurance company. So, for example, to create this scenario of maybe you were traveling from point A to point B, and suddenly you discover that you misplaced your item. Write a letter to the insurance company, telling the company what happened, you know, like that. So if you see writing a letter to a company, that is a formal letter. At times also they will tell you, you went to a restaurant to eat, blah, blah, blah. You were not happy with the experience you have. Write to the manager. So if you are writing to a company, writing to an institution, it is a formal letter. The very recent one is they will tell you you are a student or you are taking a course in a particular school, but you need a week off. You understand? You are in a school, you need a week off. Write a letter to your school, XYZ. So writing a letter to your school is also a formal letter. Do you understand? So anything formal letter, there are things you need to consider once you identify that, okay, this is a formal letter. And that is actually why it's important for you to know the type of letter, because of these parameters I am about to mention. Do you get that? So number one, you look at the opening of the letter. Now, at this junction, I should let you know that your letter will not have addresses. There is no sender address or receiver's address. No addresses. There is no title. You begin your letter with the opening. Now, if it is a formal letter, your opening is dear sir or madam. Now, I like you to watch the capitalization. So the D is capital, the S is capital, the M is capital. That's how you write it. So don't go and begin this with small letter, all right? When you are writing, you must pay attention to every detail. It's important, all right? Now, this is the opening. Now, once I identify that it is a formal letter, this is how I will begin the letter. That's why it's important. The second thing is the content. How do you begin the content? For the content, you go straight to point. There's no time for greeting. How is your family? How is your this? No. You just go straight to point. I am writing to express my dissatisfaction, you know. So you just go straight to point. So that's how you begin the content. That is immediately after the opening. The opening is dear sir or madam. Then you begin your content. And then the closing, which is the C, you close by saying yours faithfully. You notice that the Y is capital and the F here is small letter. Okay, so that's how you write that. So this is capital Y, this is small letter F. So you end it or you close it by saying yours faithfully. Then there's a place you put your name. There's a little gap you have to sign and then put your name, your proper name, because it's an official letter. Do we get that now? So these three things are very important when you are writing. Your ability to understand the type of letter and implement this function. Next type of letter is semi-formal. Now, if it is, how do you identify a semi-formal letter? A semi-formal letter is a letter that is written to somebody you have partial, I'll call it partial relationship with, okay? Somebody you know, but you don't know so well. Is not a friend, is not a boss, like in between. So for example, if you have to write a letter to your landlord is somebody that is known to you to a level because he gave you a house where you are staying. You pay your rent to him or her. So that a letter to your landlord is a semi-formal letter. A letter to your neighbor, somebody you live in the same compound, somebody that lives next door to you, it's actually a semi-formal letter. Do you get that? But the one that is very common, it's a letter to your landlord, okay? That's the one that over the years that we have actually seen more. So just try to identify the letter. If it's a letter that is written to somebody that is not so known by you, you know, then that is even a coursemate in a school. It's a semi-formal letter. Now, if it is a semi-formal letter, how will the opening be? The opening, you begin with dear Mr. If it's a man or Mrs. Maybe dear Mr. John. Also take note of capitalization. You know, when you call people Mr., you are formal, okay? It's different from when you say John. All right, so dear Mr. John, because it has some element of formal and informal. All right, so that is the opening. Then for the content also, the content look like the formal letter. You go straight to the point also. You just go straight to the point. I am writing to inform you about the new development in the compound. I got a circular that going forward, we are going to be paying 1,005 as NEPA bill as a You know, you are just talking straight to point. Okay. So then the closing, you close it with the yours. This is capital, all right? Yours sincerely. So that is how you close it. Then you put your name beneath it. So this structure is very important. The opening, the content structure, and the closing. All right? Third and the last type of letter is the informal letter. Okay? The informal letter is a letter written by somebody that is well known to you, like a family person, like a friend. Okay? A friend or a family person. Now, you know, when you are reading some of these questions, you should pay attention to the terms that are being used. There are times that a neighbor can become your friend. You know, like you are in a real life situation, your neighbor can actually progress to becoming your friend. Now, the fact that maybe you have a neighbor that is your friend does not mean if IELTS says you should write a letter to your neighbor, then you now start thinking that neighbor is a friend. Do you understand what I'm saying? Neighbor normally is a neighbor, it's not a friend. But in real life situation, you can have a friend that is a neighbor that is a friend. Now, if you are asked to write a letter to a friend, to a family person, that is an informal letter because these people are well known by you or to you. And one of the questions that is very common is this. You newly got a new accommodation. Write a letter to your friend, inviting him or her, maybe to come and see the place and all of that. Again, they will tell you something like, oh, you are about going for a vacation or a holiday, okay? And your friend has accepted to stay in your apartment or take care of your apartment for you. Write a letter to that your friend, you know, like that. So now, anytime you see a letter to a friend or to a family member, it is an informal letter. Now, how do you begin? How do you open the informal letter? You begin by saying, Dear John. Okay? So there is no need for Mr., Mrs. In fact, you can even use the person's pet name. All right? So, Dear John. All right? Then for the content, you need to know how the person is faring because this is your family member, this is your friend. So you need to know how the person is doing. And you can use the general language from COVID-19. Hope you are keeping safe. I really want to appreciate the hospitality I received the last time I visited your house. You know, you just hope the family, your husband, you know, you just greet the person. All right? So that is how you begin the content. You cannot begin the content of a letter to your friend or an informal letter without greeting that your friend. Do you understand? If you are writing a formal letter, just go straight to point. Now, if you are writing an informal letter, you cannot go straight to point. You need to first know how the person is faring before you now start answering the questions that are raised in the letter. Then the last one is warm regard. That is the closing. So you close the letter by saying warm regards. This is capital. Warm regards, best wishes, you know, like that. We are looking at is the structure of the letter writing. The structure. How do you structure the writing? Like I mentioned earlier, there is a score for proper structuring of your letter, and it's very simple. Now, if you give those details, then give instructions about how to care for your pet. You know, you just tell the person, and you know, some of these things, because somebody may say, I don't have a pet. In fact, I don't even like pets. I've never seen a pet before. But you cannot write that in your letter now, say, I don't have pets. So you are going to assume, maybe you've watched it in a movie, you've heard about it. There's a way you must have heard about pets and taking care of pets. So you may talk about when to bathe the pet, maybe every morning and evening. You may talk about the feeding of the pet and where the food to the pet is kept, you know, those kind of things. So the quantity to give. Do you understand? So anything you feel the person should know about, you know, the pet, you mentioned it. Then describe any other household duty. You know, maybe the fact that, oh, the security light should be put on by 6 p.m. and turned off by 6 a.m. You know, any other thing, it can just be imaginative. Just think about something that answer the questions. All right. So once you are done with your writing. So this is the structure of the letter writing. All right. So you begin your opening. For the content now is where all of this come in, and then the closing. So once you are done with that, you are done. Then you can actually review. Don't waste time. Where some students waste time is they want to be counting the words. It's not really important. The fact that they said it should not be less than 150 does not mean you now start looking for how to inject rubbish into what you have written. So if you follow this structure very well, there's no way you will not write at least 170 something. You understand? You should follow the structure as it is. All right. But once you finish writing, you review the construction of sentences, because you know a word can distort the meaning of a whole sentence. So you read it to make sure that you know your ideas are well expressed. You understand? And then when you are done, you move on to the essay writing. So this is all about letter writing. All right. Yeah.